And I am privileged to introduce Dr. Susmita Sadana, who is not only well known in the community, very highly engaged with RP, and for those who don't know Susmita, I'm just going to give you a background, but she has, this is something to look forward to, this session that she is very passionate about. So that is what you will see in her talk, in her communication about this topic on Indian foods, which is not alien to anybody in this room. This is the core of our culture, who we are, and definitely will need to know more about how this is going to be impacting our life, our health, and that is so important. So we talked about meditation, mindfulness, so how we nurture our mind. Now we're going to talk about, or we're going to hear from Susmita about how we nurture our bodies, our physical health. So just briefly, just background on what Susmita has done. She is a graduate of the master's program in the medical didactics from OSU College of Medicine. She's a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and as I mentioned, she's compassionate about nutrition counseling for better health. Her own journey did begin with her being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and hyperlipidemia, and so she put a lot of effort and time into how we can adopt healthy lifestyle, eat healthy to deal with these chronic illnesses. This is just one example, but I think you can extend that to any chronic illnesses, and this is the most important time, especially as we went through a pandemic, and even afterwards, how important it is, not only just the mental health, but the physical health, and how do we do that with our diet and, of course, exercise and meditation. Susmita also holds a PhD in Russian literature at Ohio State University and has taught Russian language and literature at Kenyon College, Indiana University, University of Pittsburgh, and at Ohio Wesleyan University. She's very passionate about cooking. She's very passionate about teaching. She's very passionate about making sure everybody is, on top of their physical health, and that also lends into emotional health. And I can't emphasize, being a psychiatrist, how important our mental health and physical health is tied together. So she's. One last thing, if you haven't tasted her food that she cooked along with Auntie, thank you, for making the dokla, the upma, and the cookies. They were delicious and, of course, very healthy. So thank you. And thank you again for participating in the RP educational series. We look forward to more of that in the future as well. Just the last note, I'm hoping that whatever she will be discussing over here, will be sharing, is also in her book that she has wrote. She's the author of The Healthy Diabetic, Delicious Vegetarian Food for the Family. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, I think that would be a good starting point for healthy living. So without further delay, here's Dr. Susmita Sadana. Thank you, Susmita.
Friends who are hapless enough to get caught in my web in parties or gatherings must have really regretted it, because I don't leave any chance. And it's not as if that's the only thing I think about, but somehow all roads seem to lead to this room, which for me is food. I'm a foodie too. I think beat all foodies, but how many of you are foodies here? All of you, right? So I am talking to the right crowd. Yeah. So let me tell you that there will be no mention of salads here, because I think there are a lot of myths about food, about healthy food. So I hope to dispel some of those myths. So I was tasked with addressing this topic, Indian foods, nutrition, and health. So I would like to start with some cultural concepts that exist in our, in our ecosystem. For those of us, I think all of us in this room were born in India, and all of us have some connection with these fragments of concepts that float in the air there that we may not have consciously paid attention to, but we have there is this saying from the Upanishad, Annam brahmete vyajanat, Annam na nindyat tad vratam prano va annam. These are words from Sanskrit. Some of you might understand the essence of it. What it means is that Annam means food, not necessarily rice. Annam brahmete vyajanat, meaning food is divine, right? So let us treat food with utmost respect. Whatever it is that we consider, sacred, let food be as sacred as that being that we worship. So food is sacred, right? Annam na nindyat tad vratam. Let's take a vow, let's take a promise to not criticize food. So I am taking that promise here that no food is worthy of criticism. I am not going to criticize any food. There is no bad food or good food. There is food that may be good for us, may not be good for somebody else. So we need to be aware of that, right? And these are not new concepts. We are simply rehashing things that have existed in our, in our cultural consciousness. So prano va annam, we need food for life, right? Food gives us life. So let us be respectful towards that food. Let us understand it well. So that is going to be my sort of feeble attempt today, right? Our culture is also, I'm here of course referring to Hindu culture, but I don't think it matters, right? There is this culture, this ancient 5,000-year-old culture that venerates food and has created an anthropomorphic form, like a goddess of food, right? Annapurna. So we not only do we worship food, not only do we consider food divine, we consider it important to share food, right? Hospitality and love are part of our culture, no matter what our religious beliefs are. What I'm trying to say, it's not tied to any religion. All of us from the South Asian subcontinent, I'm sure even in our adopted country here in the US, consider hospitality to be very important, right? We are the ones who say Atithi Devo Bhava, guest is God. And how do we love our guests? How do we love our family? By giving them food, right? So it is important for us to understand how can we show this love. We don't want to give foods that are going to make a loved one sick or sicker, for example, right? So just wanted to frame this, start the conversation with this framing, to understand that food is something to be loved, to be respected, and not to be feared, not to be, not to feel stressed about. So I'd like you to maybe take a minute to speak to your neighbor and ask them what, if they were to have an Indian meal, what would they eat? What is on a typical Indian thali? So let's ask each other, and then we'll report to the class. So just turn to your neighbor, ask ki kya hota hai, what is in your thali? This is not a cheat sheet. This is not a cheat sheet. Just authentically ask your neighbors what it is that they actually eat. Okay, who's ready? Who wants to tell me what their neighbor eats? Yes, I mean, you know what you eat. I want you to learn something new, so yes.
So I learned from Auntie that she eats very little grain.
Yes.
Salads, vegetables, that's the biggest on her. So
she eats very little.
Yeah, and she eats very little food.
Yes.
So something that, I guess,
subjective,
maybe
see.
little quantity, but multiple times.
Yes. Let me hear about someone I don't know. Whose food habits I do not know. How about this table here? Sudhaji.
I like idli sambar.
You like idli sambar. Okay. How about you, Neetaji?
I'm actually very fond of Gujarati thali. Looks very tempting.
Okay. So what's on your Gujarati thali? Okay. Monica, you guys?
So we have a collective thali.
Okay. What's on this collective thali?
Thali is delicious.
Of course.
Not like auntie. So we use
Yeah.
We have roti.
Yeah.
We usually have a dal.
Yes.
And we have a sabji. And we have some form of yogurt or something.
Perfect.
And then often there's a non-veg as well.
Okay.
And some fisher chicken. And there's what else? Sambar, salad.
Oh, yeah.
Salad can be a hit or miss sometimes. Yogurt.
Yogurt.
So it's a
Seema makes an amazing chicken shakuti, and shrimp. Okay, this table. Okay. Roj ki thali. Yeah. This Roj ki thali, the thali in the middle on the screen is, by the way, an actual thali reported to me by one of my clients. So that's an actual meal that she has eaten. How about the guys over there? Oh my gosh, I should have started with that table.
Mixed platter.
Okay.
So it goes from pasta and Punjabi khana to one guy saying, a pure Brahmin saying chicken. And then they condemn me to curd rice.
Yes, the ultimate comfort food, right? Okay, and kebab, shabab, right? Yes. No shabab, only kebab. Okay, and here, Dakshana, you guys.
More lentils, less rice and so less roti,
Okay,
lots of vegetables.
lots of vegetables.
Enough diet with everything.
Okay. Perfect. So one thing we've understood is that we have a lot of variety in our foods. But let's look. These are some typical things that do appear on a Roj ki thali, right? We do have roti. A lot of you mentioned roti. A lot of you mentioned rice. Some kind of dal. Often it's yellow dal. This particular day, my client had lauki ke chilke ki sabzi, which is interesting. She had made it with besan, and I'm Telugu, and my mom makes lauki ke chilke ki chutney, so we don't let any part of any vegetable go waste. And then cucumber pieces. This is after I had talked to her a little bit about increasing her vegetable intake. So I said, I want to see more vegetables on your plate. I said, I want to see 50% of your plate to be vegetables. So you see, visually, 50% is vegetables, but then the rest has been crammed into the other remaining 50%. So yeah. So, but this is a fairly typical plate. Again, I want us to keep this in mind as we go along. And please raise your hand or make a noise if you think that as we go on, there is a bit too much information. I mean, this is not intended to be an academic lecture. So I have tried to keep a balance, but let's see how it goes. So let's understand a little bit. Why do we eat? What does food mean to it, right? Mean to us. It is not just a scientific exercise ki kuch khana hai to chalo kha lo. Right? What does it mean to us? And this is, again, I'm not going to lecture at you about this slide. Let's talk about it. Why do we eat? Some reasons that are often discussed is that it brings us comfort, right? It reminds us of our childhood, because we all go back to, think of childhood as a carefree time where, food was an important part. Like, I'm sure all of us who grew up, I think we are all contemporaries. We grew up eating bread pakoras and, bread rolls, and those lazy summer evenings where mom would be making fun food. So it reminds us of our childhood. But it also is an anchor for us as immigrants, right? We have had to adapt so much to so many things, right? A new way of living. We came here as adults. So we had to change a lot of things about us. So often we hold on to our food as something that maybe defines us at our core, right? As immigrants. It helps us hold on to our roots. But we already talked about what we eat as Asian Indians. So why do we eat? What are some reasons you guys eat?
Just a routine.
Just a routine.
We have like breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Acha.
And then we need energy, of course.
We need
I
energy.
don't eat sometimes like going crazy.
Right. Hangry.
Yeah, or like I feel like low.
You
very
feel low. Yeah. What else? What does anyone think of emotional reasons for eating? Like, for sure, right?
I just like to try new things.
You'd like to try.
And to see how the outcome is of that.
What do you mean by outcome?
If I make something new, I mean, I just like to try new dishes to see how it, and especially during pandemic, with restaurants being closed, it forced us.
So you became the restaurant.
Wonderful thing.
And do you like stand in front of family and say, कि बताओ अच्छा लगा कि नहीं?
Yeah, ऐसा तो नहीं पूछ सकते.
ऐसा नहीं.
Because, you know, that's kind of,
Yeah.
But trying new things makes you.
Trying
If it turns out good, makes you
some
feel
excitement.
fine.
Yeah, excitement. Okay. Anyone else? Why do we eat?
Because my wife cooks very well.
Too bad she's not here. Too bad she's not here. It shall be duly reported to her.
People eat when they're bored.
People eat when they're bored. So the idea is to never get bored, huh? So you don't eat much. It's out of boredom.
Less work.
Less work.
Makes you eat more.
Oh, okay. All right. So there are many reasons why we eat. Okay, so I'm not. Okay. When you're home more, you eat more. So don't stay at home.
Even if you're not hungry,
You feel like eating, right? Okay. So while there may be many reasons why we eat, let's look at, do we need food? Do we need to eat? And what is it that we need to eat, right? So today we'll talk about macronutrients, those nutrients that we need in larger quantities, because we probably won't have time to talk about micronutrients, the ones that we need in smaller quantities like magnesium, the vitamins and minerals. Today we'll just talk about the bigger macronutrients, right? So there are two types of macronutrients that, depending on their necessity to our body. One type is called essential macronutrients, and the second type is non-essential macronutrients. And as I said, if we have time, we'll talk about micronutrients. So what does essential mean, right? In this context, essential means that your body cannot make these nutrients. So you have to supply these nutrients, these macronutrients, through food only. There are no supplements that you can ingest and, make do. So food has to be the source of these essential macronutrients, right? There are two essential macronutrients, right? They are protein and fat. Actually, essential amino acids and essential fatty acids. Those two are essential for the body. The body needs it for various reasons. So you see, I'm not mentioning one very important macronutrient. What are macronutrients, as you guys know? What are the big ones?
Put it there.
I put it.
You should have hidden that.
I should have hidden that, yes. I'm a bad teacher. So yeah, the macronutrients that we know are carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So of these three, the body basically only needs amino acids and fats. It does not need, carbohydrate is not an essential macronutrient, meaning that your body can function without it. But let's go back and think about our plate, right? What did we have the most of on that plate? We had carbohydrates. So we had the most non-essential nutrient occupy the most space in our plate. Again, there is no value judgment here. It is just understanding and unraveling the process, right? That we have so much of what we do not need and so little of what we really do need, right? So let's look at essential amino acids. What are they? They are the building blocks of protein. So if you take a protein and break it apart, the smallest unit in that protein will be an amino acid. And there are 9 amino acids that the body does not produce and needs on a daily basis, right? Or at least 3 times a week, right? For those of you who are like, oh, she's going to bring on the protein, the P word. I'm just saying, be aware of it, right? The body needs it. And why does the body need it, right? What do these proteins do in the body? They are catalysts, right? And enzymes. There are hundreds and thousands and millions of biochemical reactions happening in the body every second that we are alive. And these reactions are powered by enzymes, right? Are not powered, but actually modified by enzymes. Enzymes can speed up the reaction, slow down the reaction. Basically, they are important. They're catalysts. They can begin the reaction. So proteins are important as catalysts. And again, if you go back to build these proteins, the body needs those essential amino acids which come from food. So it's all related, right? Everything keeps coming back to food. So if you don't have those essential amino acids, then your body is going to struggle. Of course, we are very resilient, right? Humans are resilient. They make do with nothing, right? People survive in starvation. It's not that we will not survive. But when we start talking about chronic illnesses, which a lot of us end up having, then we want to make sure that we are optimizing our nutrition. So amino acids are important as catalysts. They are important as messengers and hormones in the body, like insulin. All of us know about insulin, right? Insulin is the key that gets glucose into our cells. What is it made of? Protein. What is protein made of? Amino acids. Where do those 9 essential amino acids come from? From food, right? So you get the picture, right? That it is not a fad to include protein in your food. It is essential because your body needs it, right? Protein also form structural elements of, muscles. In cardiac muscles, smooth muscles, the actin and myosin are 2 elements in our muscles, in our heart muscles. Dr. Balika will talk about it if you have questions, but basically they're also made of proteins. So the building blocks of these important things are proteins, right? They're also immunoprotectors, right? Your Igs, immunoglobulins that bind to antigens that help you deal with seasonal allergens, right? They're also made of proteins. Hemoglobin that transports oxygen and carbon dioxide in your body also is a protein, right? LDL and HDL, which we mistakenly called cholesterol, are actually lipoproteins, right? They are proteins and fats in a complex, right? So proteins are essential to bind and form LDL and HDL, right? And we know that HDL is the good lipoprotein that helps scavenge fat molecules from your body, right? And then we have all, especially during the pandemic, we've heard about this test called the C-reactive protein test, right? Is your CRP high or low? How are you responding? That is a protein. This is an acute phase responder protein, right? So when you're sick, then the C-reactive protein, increases in your blood. But that's a protein too, right? So protein have many essential roles in the body. So it's also instructive to know how much do we need as adults. So the minimum we need is 0.8 grams to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. So all of you have your phones which have calculators. So go ahead, find out how much protein you need, how much minimum protein you need in a day. Go ahead. So you find out your body weight in kilograms. If you know it in pounds, you divide it by 2.2. You will have your body weight in kilograms and multiply. And then that's how much protein you need. So everyone knows how much protein they need? Well, you guys are very fast. Okay, anyone?
Very conscious of their weight.
Of their weight. Okay, let's not do 1 gram. Let's do 0.8. Let's do 0.8. Okay, how much do you need, Meenal? 42 grams. Okay, anyone else? How much do you need? 45. Okay. But none of the guys, they all know how much protein they need and get enough.
60.
6.
Everybody needs 60 here.
And so this is for healthy adults. Ideal body weight. Wonderful. Makes me happy. So this is for healthy adults. But if you have any chronic illnesses, right, if you have chronic kidney disease or diabetes or liver disease, then the protein needs change. Because if your body is under siege, is inflamed, then it's going to need more protein. Because protein also helps tissue repair, right? If there's something wrong in your body, something is on fire, protein is the one that's going to douse that fire. So it's an important, I'm hitting you over the head with this message. So let's look at some protein-rich foods. Okay, pick one favorite food from the screen. Chobani, Greek yogurt. Okay. Eggs, okay. Tofu. Who said tofu? I don't believe that. Seriously?
What do you mean? I
No.
eat tofu 3 times a week.
You do? You like edamame? Okay. Where's the lamb? Where's the goat? I had. Okay, missing a lamb and goat. But fish, the picture on the side is supposed to be fish. No one likes fish? You like fish and you make such amazing fish, right? Yeah. There's paneer and that little kadai is supposed to be soya nuggets ki sabzi, right? So often in my practice, if I see vegetarians, okay, people of Indian origin who are vegetarians like me, I grew up in a South Indian Brahmin family where we didn't even eat onions and garlic. Now, of course, I eat onions and garlic and fish and eggs. But I'm saying that even if you're completely vegetarian, look at the bottom half of the screen.
Yeah.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sources of protein, right? We'll come to dal. You see, I did not put dal on this screen for a reason, and we'll come to it. There was a question. Cottage cheese. Cottage cheese. 16 grams of protein in half a cup. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there is a reason I did not put dals here, and we will come to that, right? So there are sufficient sources of protein for pretty much everyone in this room. Now let's look at the second essential macronutrient, which is fatty acids, right? Why do we need fatty acids? Fatty acids are basically the building blocks of fats, right? That we are all, how many of you are scared of fats? Wow, this is such an enlightened room. You're like, if she's asking how many of you are scared, that's got to be a trick question, so we are not going to say anything because both answers could be wrong.
Test takers.
Good test taker. But I told you my first slide was Annamna Nindyat Tadvratam. I'm promising not to diss any food, not to judge any food. I'm just saying that fats are important. And why are they important? First of all, they're a reservoir of stored energy, right? If you have not been able to eat for a long time. Like, there are people who do intermittent fasting, right? Their hope is what? That those stored fats, which are often in the abdomen, will get used up because that is where most of the energy is stored, right? 1 gram of fat is going to give you 9 calories of energy versus 1 gram of protein or carbohydrate is only going to give you 4 grams, right? So there's a powerhouse of energy. It also provides protection to your internal organs. Fat does. Also against heat loss, right? Because we live in extreme climates. Sometimes it's really cold, so fats insulate you against that heat loss. But many of us in this room have heard of that phospholipid bilayer that forms the cell membrane, right? Each cell is enclosed in this bilayer in which half is made of lipids, right? So that keeps the cell membrane fluid. It allows transport of nutrients in and out of cells. It keeps the cell healthy. So there are 2 essential fatty acids that we'll come to in a bit, but fats are important for many reasons. Another important reason is that you need 4 vitamins that are fat soluble, vitamins A, D, E, and K, which have different specific functions in your body, right? You can eat all the vitamins you want in the form of supplements, but if you do not take fat along with those supplements, then these vitamins are not going to get absorbed by your body and are not going to be utilized effectively. So fats are required for that. They also form the basis of, bile acids, which help in fat digestion, that are important part of the GI system. Fats are building blocks for steroid hormones in the body, right? Oops, this is an out of place slide. This was back where, well, let's talk about it anyway since it showed up. Sanjay, my husband, brought this to my attention that literally on September 22nd, India imported vegan protein to the US. So you see, and these are, actually the label is not very clear, but these are vegan protein Shami kebabs. So now they'll be soon available in the United States, and we should try them out and see. But
What is it made of?
I want to say it's made of soy product, the soy product. So let's get back to the. So there are two essential fatty acids. One is linoleic acid and one is alpha-linolenic acid. You guys don't need to know the names, obviously. You just need to know where we are getting from and what they do for our body, right? So this is linoleic acid, which is an essential fatty acid, is the parent of omega-6 fatty acids. And we've all heard about omega-6 and omega-3s, right? So this is a polyunsaturated fatty acid, meaning that it is liquid at room temperature, basically, more than anything else. It's not going to essentially clog your arteries like we talk about saturated fat and trans fats. The thing about this particular fatty acid is that it's ubiquitous. It's present everywhere, right? It's present in your sesame oil. It's present in your mustard oil. It's present in your vegetable oil, right? I'm just subtly promoting cold-pressed oils here, right? You want oils that are not overly processed, correct? And there are concerns that we overconsume this particular fatty acid. So chances of us being deficient in this particular fatty acid are low, because omega-6, this particular linoleic acid, is present everywhere, right? We cook with these oils. So we just need to be a little bit conscious about not over-consuming it. We need at least, we'll get to that in a bit. We want to know that 1 tablespoon has about 14 grams of this linoleic acid. I want to show one metabolic pathway for this linoleic acid, right? If you look on the left of your screen, when we consume linoleic acid, one particular pathway that it takes is that it finally breaks down into, it synthesizes 2 hormones, right? PGE1 and 15-OH-DGLA. Why are these 2 important? So what is linoleic acid doing? This is just one small example. These are 2 anti-inflammatory hormones, right, that help dilate blood vessels, right, that help fight inflammation. Let's say you have an injury. It doesn't have to be a physical injury. It could be any kind of inflammatory process in your body. It could be, chronic disease, right? So these anti-inflammatory properties will help the body recover from that injury, right? Because they have an anti-inflammatory effect. They dilate the blood vessel. They make the blood vessel more efficient. And how much is the minimum that we do need, right? Males, I should just stick to the 31 to 50 group. I don't think we have anyone over 50 here, right? We're all young here. We need 17 grams a day, right? And then if there is someone who's above 50, we need 14 grams at least. Yes?
So are you saying that only 1 tablespoon is enough for the day?
So good, yeah. So no. What I'm saying is that's the bare minimum. That is how much we absolutely need. There is no upper limit. So when we talk about nutrients, we have a recommended dietary allowance, or recommendation. And there is, for some nutrients, there is something called a level of toxicity that might cause toxicity. So there is no such thing here. I'm not saying that fill your bathtub with this oil and drown in it, but there is no upper limit as such, right? And it is individual for each person. You can have as much as you're comfortable with. As Rita was saying, right, your body knows. Your body will know at some point and say, I think that's a bit much for me. But you see, as I said, this is a very efficient source of energy. You take 1 tablespoon, 1 gram is going to give you 9 kilocalories, right? So it's an efficient form of energy, right? And if you're having good quality food, good quality linoleic acid, then you can have as much. As I said, no nutrient is an enemy. It depends on how well you metabolize it, how well you use it, right? So this is the recommended allowance. This is how much you must definitely be having. Don't have less than this. And have a good quality of it, right? So why cold-pressed oils is because you're not subjecting it to processing, chemical processing, heat processing, that sort of denatures some of the nutrients there. Yes.
Is oil the only form of this kind of fatty acid?
No. So I have nuts and seeds there. So they also contain these acids. Yes. Omega-6s are in nuts and seeds also. Almonds has omega-6. So almond oil has it. Almond flour has it. So the second, yes.
Cook with oil, does it denature the nutrients?
So if you cook, see the way we do Indian food, I think it's a very reasonable way to use that oil. We take a little bit of oil in our pans, heat it for just a very short while, very short, I think less than a minute, and we quickly start adding tadka ingredients, which right away lower the heat. And then we add wet ingredients like pyaz, tomato, or the vegetable, so it right away lowers the heat. If you keep that oil at 350 or 400, above its smoke point for an extended period of time, then it is, a toxic substance. But yeah, otherwise not. Yes?
What about my favorite oil, ghee?
Oh, absolutely. So again, ghee, we've lived with ghee for centuries, right? So I don't see any harm in having ghee. So absolutely, have ghee. And the cardiologist is asking this. Yes.
They change their mind by
See, I'm a lowly dietitian. For me, it's all about food. The science I leave to the cardiologist. But ghee is something that has been part of our culture forever, right? For a long time. Has the reduction of ghee led to the reduction of cardiac disease? I do not know. We do not have large randomized control trials about this. However, in my practice or in whatever I have read so far, there is no adverse effect linked to the consumption of ghee. So neither science nor practice says that. So eat it if you like it, if it makes you happy. This is like, you have to be like Marie Kondo, right? Marie Kondo about food. Does it make you happy? Eat it. Except if it is, certain foods which we are not going to talk about today. But what I'm saying is, if good foods make you happy, eat it. Let's get to this alpha-linolenic acid, right? This is the fabled omega-3, right? This is the parent of omega-3 fatty acids. It's also a polyunsaturated fatty acid. These are as opposed to saturated fats which ghee has and coconut oil has. So where do you find this? You find it in fish, of course, and you find it in flax oil. So all of you who are vegetarians and say, oh, I cannot have omega-3, I'm saying you can because it's in flax oil. And flax oil or alsi ka tel, alsi ke beej, how many of you, this has existed in Indian culture for a long time in all the regions, right? So every region has a name for it. Does anyone know any other names for flax? I know alsi in Punjabi and Hindi. We don't know what we say in Telugu, no? My bad. As a former linguist, next time I'll find out names. It's also there in chia seeds, and we have a cousin of chia seeds. Oh, my time's almost up. I get 10 more minutes because I started late. Yeah. Chia seeds. So this is also, I'm sticking to only Indian foods, right? Chia seeds, we have a cousin of chia seeds, sabja. Tukmaria, I think Tukmaria, yeah, sabja. So we've had this also in our culture for a long time.
That has similar properties?
Yes. It forms a soluble gel. It's a soluble fiber that acts as a scavenger. So as opposed to omega-6s, concerns of underconsumption are, what we deal with, right? Are we having enough omega-3s? Are we having omega-3s at all, right? If we go back and think about our roj ki thali, right? In a day, in a week, do we have any of these foods? It's also present in walnuts. I have walnuts right there, but how many, I don't know, present company excluded. I think this is a very enlightened company, enlightened room that takes care of themselves. However, yes.
Maybe 3 times flax oil, or is it just for
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. No, so you want to add it to foods after you've cooked the foods. Yeah. So one way, as someone, we used to have moong dal ka chila used to be a staple breakfast in my family. Hare moong ka chila for decades. Hare moong ka chila, some protein, either scrambled eggs or cottage cheese, and then we would have something called malaga podi or gunpowder, right? That is had with dosas and idlis in the south. So we would have that homemade, and we would add flax oil to it and mix it. Or just take flax oil and put it on our moong dal ka chila, or put it on the cottage cheese. And it's got a nice nutty flavor to it. So,
does it lose its fiber content of flax oil?
So, ek pant do kaj. Meenal is so efficient, yes. So, yes, there is no fiber in the oil. If you have the seeds, then you get the fiber and the oil ka benefit. But there is no harm in having just the oil either, because it fulfills our essential fatty acid requirement. So I just want you to take a look at these, just glance at this. Yes, Dr. Valia.
What about pistachio? I like those. What are your opinion on that?
Have all the nuts. Go nuts for nuts. All nuts are good, as long as they are not planters' nuts. I have nothing against planters if they're listening, but they are processed nuts. They used highly refined oils, and they subject these nuts to high temperatures. That is what you don't want to have. But the Indian store has raw pistachios, raw almonds, raw cashews, raw walnuts. So there are no nuts that are bad. Again.
Is there, how much, what's the amount you can have per day? Is there a limit?
Is there a limit? How much do you think you can have? Let's say I said there is no limits. How much do you think you can have?
I have a whole bowl.
You can have a whole bowl. Have a whole bowl. Again, there is no limit as such, right? How much can you have? Anu is saying that she can have a whole bowl. Have a whole bowl, then maybe you're not going to be hungry for anything else later on. I would just say sneak in a little bit of vegetables with it, and that's fine, right? Just have a little bit of vegetables. You want to have that color and all that. So look at so all these foods, right? Flaxseed, chia seeds, walnuts, these oils, mustard oils, tofu, all of these are good sources of alpha-linolenic acid. And basically, we need only 1.67 for men and 1.1 for women. At least that much, right? So this much you all can sneak in. Now, let's get to everybody's favorite macronutrient. That is not essential, right? Why is it not essential? Because your body can synthesize carbohydrates from other macronutrients. It can make carbohydrates from proteins and fats. So the RDA for carbohydrates is a little bit controversial, so I didn't put anything here, right? There is a huge range of RDAs, and most of the RDAs that are recommended in the United States are based on studies done on Caucasians, whereas South Asians are metabolically very different, right? So there are studies now that say that South Asians especially, who are around and over 50, should not have more than 50 grams of carbohydrates in a day, okay? But this is based on research that is emerging right now. So no more than 50 grams. Again, as I said, I'm not going to be prescriptive about anything.
Can you repeat that again?
Oh, no. I'm not going to get in between a husband and a wife. I mean, this is not fair. We will take this outside.
I need her to be alive.
You can bring this to my office, but we shall not do this here,
We have this
right?
fight in the house all the time. Now
Right.
bring my family members in.
You see, food is a very, very emotional and contentious thing. It can be. So just be calm, be mindful, as Rita said. But it can be. I have had grown men and women weep in my office talking about food, right? Because it is a very emotionally charged thing. So I'm just putting this information out there for you to ruminate, meditate, think about it. But yes, there are studies now being done on South Asians, especially immigrants, and the emerging research is saying that we really do not need to consume more than 50 grams a day for various reasons, right? But today's lecture is a very general lecture, so I'm simply saying this. But look at some sources, right? We eat this all the day. Aloo, how many of you love potatoes? I'm the first one, right? There was a time when I was in grad school, I would rush to the gym after school, I would work out, I would then cross the street, go to McDonald's and reward myself with fries, right? So that aloo is hardwired in our brains. Bachpan se khaya hua hai na, we love it. So, but just be aware that it's a source of carbohydrates. I want to have aloo, just be aware, but make sure you have the other stuff, right? Matar, chapati, chawal, all of these are sources of carbohydrates. So just, if we want to have one roti, it's about 22 grams of carbohydrates. Right? And if we are saying that South Asians should have no more than 50 grams a day, then you be aware ki acha, I'm having roti, this is how much I need. And also we need to know that as adults, we don't have a lot of calorie and nutrient requirements. Right? We don't need a lot of carbohydrates because we are not growing vertically, and we definitely don't want to grow horizontally or, this way. Let's look at what what part of the carbohydrate we're actually eating. Let's look at the whole story, right? So if we look at a wheat kernel, there are 3 parts, or a rice kernel, any starch kernel, any kernel of a carbohydrate. There are 3 essential parts, 3 parts to it. Let me not use the word essential, 3 parts to it, right? You have the fibrous, oil-rich bran, which is outside. Then the largest part is the starchy endosperm, which is actually the food for the new plant that will grow. And then you have the germ, like the wheat germ or the rice germ. The germ and the bran contain fiber, they contain B vitamins, they contain essential oils, whereas the endosperm, the largest part of it, contains only starch, right? What do? We remove the germ, we highly process this grain. We remove the germ, why? Because it has oil and does not lead to shelf life, right? It spoils the shelf life, so it makes the starch rancid, the grain rancid. So we remove the germ. So there goes our vitamin E, there goes other B vitamins. We remove the endosperm, we remove the bran because it is, coarse in texture. It interferes with the gluten when we are making roti, or it just makes it look ugly because it's brown and it's dark. And then we take the starchy endosperm and then we dunk it in bleaching solutions, right? And then we dry it and we pass it through blades, steel blades, that polish it. So जो हम कहते हैं हम तो शरबती आटा लेके जी चक्की से पिसवाते हैं, हाँ जी बिल्कुल, पर वो है क्या, वो शरबती गेहूँ है क्या? It is this highly refined, highly processed endosperm. You have lost the bhusa, you've lost the bran, you've lost the germ. So basically what you're having is the pure starch, pure sugar, pure simple sugar from that grain, correct? But luckily now we have available wheat bran, oat bran separately. Did any of you try the upma today?
Yeah.
So that was just made out of bran, just bran. So that has fiber, that has oils, it has carbohydrates, but not that highly processed carbohydrate, right? Also, many of us think that, oh, I'm having multigrain atta, so it's much better than wheat atta. But is multigrain whole grain? Not necessarily. You take 10 different grains, all of them highly processed with their bran removed, with their shell removed, with their germ removed, and then you mix it together. So yes, you have different varieties of same processed grain. So just be aware of these. And then what about whole wheat versus refined versus enriched wheat, right? If you take a quick glance at this, the green is the whole wheat flour. You're looking at various nutrients in these flours, right? If you look at refined wheat flour, you see that it is devoid of most of the nutrients, right? So because the governments at one point recognized that these refined wheat, which was easy, which was this highly powdered endosperm, was so nutrient poor, they started adding powdered forms of nutrients, which is why enriched wheat flour has excess of some nutrients. But you still see that the whole wheat provides you 100% of all nutrients, right? So that's something to be aware of. Okay, I just want to let us look at some nutritive values of legumes and lentils. Right now we know that we are looking at probably 50 grams of carbs in a day. So let us look at, I don't know, someone pick a favorite legume. Who likes lobia or who likes rajma? Rajma. Let's look at rajma, right? So 3/4 of a cup cooked rajma has 30 grams of carbohydrates, okay? And so we've been brought up to think that legumes are a good source of protein. They are a good source of protein, but more importantly, they're a good source of complex carbohydrate, right? So you see it has 11 grams of protein. So I'm not going to call this, we cannot call this a source of protein alone, right? Yes, it provides good protein, but also be aware that it comes in a carb car, right? You have this car carrying some protein. It has fiber. How much fiber does it have? 8.5 grams, and we didn't even get to fiber. I think Api should give me a second opportunity to finish this. Yes, so let's go back. Let's say we are going to do rajma chawal, right? So if you look at rice, 100 grams of rice, how much? 100 grams of cooked rice is 78 grams of carbohydrate.
How much is 100 grams? How much cup is 100 grams?
100 grams is about a katori, little over a katori, right? So 1 katori rice, 3/4 cup of rajma, you have how much? 100 grams, right? Okay, how much protein are we getting? So you'll see, now what happens to the rest of your meals? Then you do an anu and just have nuts. I'm not saying that we have to stick to those recommendations. I'm just saying be aware. And again, be more aware if you have chronic metabolic conditions, correct? Let's quickly do fiber and then I'll move on. So fiber. We looked at some foods that have fiber, right? Why is it important to have fiber? Because it helps lower cholesterol. Clinical research has proven this, that soluble fiber, not all kinds of fiber, there are many kinds of fiber. Soluble fiber forms a gel and acts as a scavenger. It scavenges those molecules of fat, bad fat from your blood, and removes it, excretes it from your body. So same with glycemic control. It promotes blood sugar control. And I should know I'm a diabetic for a very, very long time. The better fiber food I have with lower carbohydrate, the better my glycemic control is, right? My blood sugars are. There are studies that are showing that it may reduce systolic blood pressure. Where do we find fiber? Of course, in Indian foods, we've had isabgol forever, right? We also have bran, we have wheat bran, we have rice. Rice bran is hard to use, but we have oat bran, and we have all those legumes and lentils. I'm just going to move quickly and see how do we put it all together. So I would say, let your plates look like this. 50% of your plate should have non-starchy vegetables. Start with that, even for breakfast. I know some of my clients have really gotten mad at me for suggesting vegetables for breakfast. But you can do it. You can have vegetables for breakfast, right? You can have a tomato that you stick in the air fryer and it tastes so good. So you have 50% non-starchy vegetables, then you have your 25% protein, and then you come to a complex carbohydrate if you want it. But ab pet bhar gaya after the protein, so don't have the complex carbohydrate. I'm just saying. Oh, look at this, right? Why did you? Right? Usko protein nahi mila. I can taste the rainbow. No, you're eating Skittles. No, eat the rainbow, right? Also remember that your immune health, 90% of your immunity comes from your gut, right? Gut-associated lymphoid tissue. So if you feed your gut, you give it, dahi is a good thing we are all having. If you eat enough fiber, if you eat the rainbow, not Skittles, then your gut is going to be happy, your immunity will be strong, you'll be able to ward off diseases. Will fat make me fat? Not necessarily, but will eating too many refined carbohydrates make me fat and sick? Probably. So quick breakfast inspiration, right? Instead of doing suji upma, do an oat bran upma. Correct? You're getting more fiber. You're getting less calories. Again, I'm never concerned about calories because we cannot chase calories. We cannot chase weight. We can improve the quality of our food, right? Also, I have a notebook here. Any of you interested in getting these recipes, please write your name and your email. Fiber 3.8, carbohydrates you get 37.5, and here you get half the carbs. Again, simple swap. Today I made dhoklas with green moong instead of traditional white idlis because it has white rice and white urad, highly processed, low in fiber. Oops, I don't have the fibers here, sorry. But it has pretty much 0 point something fiber, white idlis. Whereas your sabut moong idli, one serving of 4 idlis will have 8.4 grams of fiber. And you all tasted the dhokla. It wasn't half bad, right? Khaya ja sakta hai na? Yeah. Okay, I'm doing a seminar on Desi diabetes on the 29th of October, 11 to 1 p.m. Only 20 participants, so you can sign up here if you want. There's a diabetes group, support group. Of course, I do individual diet and lifestyle counseling, group cooking classes. So just look out for information, but sign up if you want more information. There is more, but I will call it a day. Thank you very much for your patience.